There's a lot to get into in the NFL. But for now, the focus is clearly on this race in college football and throughout the season. We've profiled some other top quarterbacks and some other top prospects. But I feel like now's the right time to get into Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, we haven't really hit on QB1 yet. I mean, we've talked about him, but we haven't really done the deep dive.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Prime's son, Colorado was dead to rights. Almost lost to North Dakota State in the opener. Really didn't look that good. Lost 2 of their next 5 games. All of a sudden now they're on a 3-game winning streak, and they control their situation. No one controls destiny, but they control their situation in the Big 12. And so I felt like now's a good time to get into Shedeur Sanders and what we're seeing as a prospect. With that in mind, I made the comment on Saturday night after the games that I was really impressed with what I saw on TV from Shedeur and the adjustments he made in game against Texas Tech.
Okay.
And I know we had a graphic at that point. I'm not sure if we still have it. You know, we can live with it or without it. But what he did in the first quarter of that game, what Texas Tech did to him in that first quarter of the game. There it is.
Look at that.
Look at our guys.
Best team in the business, man.
Best in the business. First quarter is 3 for 7, 27 yards. I even, in game was kind of jotting it down. First quarter and the first drive, throwing the first drive of the second quarter, there were 2 sacks. I think it was 4 of 9, I want to say, for like 29 yards or 4 of 8. I forget what it was, but it was not pretty. And had 2 sacks. And the rest of that game, from that point, the second drive in the second quarter on, you see the final 3 quarters, 27 of 36, 264 yards, 3 touchdowns, and was only sacked 1 time. So it begged the question. And I kept saying on Saturday night, that late night show that we did, the reaction show, which was live, and I appreciate people tuning into, and we're going to do that every week. Saturday night after the primetime game, we're going to be here to break down the biggest games, typically that game. This week, it's going to be Georgia versus Tennessee. And so please join us. We'll be live on YouTube, and then the podcast will come out on Spotify and everywhere else that you get your podcasts. But I said to you that I really wanted to go back and study that tape because I wanted to see what the difference was. So here's what, and jump in where you want, as always.
Okay.
Interrupt me where you feel it's appropriate. But I'm going to just kind of rip through my notes for a minute. And then when we circle back, I'll get into kind of big picture, what I think pros and cons of him, and maybe get into an NFL comparison.
Okay.
In the first quarter, when he was struggling, and you just saw and heard the stats, Texas Tech, throughout the game, not just the first quarter, throughout the game, 2 high shell. That means 2 safeties back. You hear a lot of that in the NFL. And Kuiper had the dumbest.
Yeah, your
comment.
guy, he wants to get rid of it.
He wants. We should ban cover 2 high shells. Okay. Well, we'll get Mel on.
Defense corners are like, make my life even harder at this point.
We're gonna get Mel on in the next couple of weeks and guide him on that and everything else. But 2 high shell. Okay. They mix their coverage. A lot of 2-man, some covered 2 zone, some zone match where they're in zone, but they match to a receiver in their zone. Pattern match, exactly. They also mixed up their rush pretty beautifully. A lot of exotic stuff, like defensive linemen starting into, looks like they're going to twist or run an end tackle, a game, and all of a sudden one of the 2 drops into underneath zone.
Simulated pressures,
simulated pressures, all of it. It was impressive. It was risky.
Right.
Like they took chances, and Texas Tech is interesting when you watch them this year. Like, they've been really bad in pass defense against average competition. They've been really good against better competition. I know. So, I mean, there's 3-man rushes, 4-man rushes, 5 and 6-man pressures. Like, they were just mixing it up. I wouldn't say a ton of that bothered Shedeur, but there were some things that stood out in that first quarter in the first drive. First of all, they can't run the ball, which is concerning. They could not run the football against a 2 high safety look, and that's a problem, right?
That's a problem.
If you get 2 safeties backed off, like, you should be able to run the football. They couldn't. Then wide receivers, inconsistent shaking coverage. They also had a couple of drops in those first 4 or 5 series. And then there were a couple screens that were blown up. Like, the easy stuff wasn't working against that cover 2 defense, backed up, retreating, all that, but showing a lot of different games up front with different pressure looks. You should be able to run the ball. You should be able to throw underneath stuff and screen stuff. And you should be able, you hope that your receivers are going to shake coverage and make it kind of easier, short to intermediate. Wasn't the case. But then, and I looked, 228. This is a specific play. 228 in the first quarter. There was a high. I guess my point is it was mostly circumstance with everything, but there were some things that Shedeur was doing that didn't match the opponent, and quite frankly, it was not his best ball. 228 remaining in the first quarter. On the right side, they were running a high-low concept. One of the receivers going vertical, the other ran an out route to try to suck in the safety. It worked effectively. He had a receiver open, got over the top of coverage, and he didn't put the ball on him. That was on him. That was an example. Also, I thought in the first quarter plus, not on time. He was drifting a lot in the pocket. Some of the things
that was weird. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I saw that too. I thought that I love his footwork. It more in this game than I had seen in a long time did he start to drift and kind of move around when he didn't have to, and he'd climb. I think that these are things that he generally does well, but within this game, he wasn't stepping up as much as I've been used to see him do. So it was interesting that he was drifting, and it affects his accuracy a little bit. But go ahead. Sorry.
I totally agree, and I saw that. But what changed? First of all, it's almost like they came to the sideline. They looked at some of the things on the Microsoft Surface, and they decided, like, okay, this is what they're doing. Now we know what they're doing. How do we adjust? The first thing I thought, and I'll put it in like layman's terms, I thought he started to, after that, in that second drive of the second quarter and the rest of the game, he started, instead of retreating in the pocket,
right?
He started taking the fight to Texas Tech,
which is what we're used to seeing. Yeah.
Right. Climbing the pocket, studying the linebackers. If I see their backs, that means they're in man. It's not cover 2 zone. It's man to man. Now I'm going to climb the pocket. I'm going to take off running. I'll make this note. And I know that there was some chatter about him competing with his dad for the 40-yard dash, running a 4.21 or whatever that was. That's a joke.
Yeah.
I mean, he apparently ran a 4.65 coming out of high school. Yeah. I don't even see that. The dude ain't fast.
Apparently those Colorado dispensaries have some pretty good product for whoever that is. He's
pocket mobile. He extends. He is not fast. He lumbers a little bit when he takes off running, but he was taking the fight to Texas Tech. So that was the first thing I saw, the difference from that second quarter and the second drive in the second quarter on. No longer drifting, starting to climb, taking off and running and took off several times. The second thing, I think Colorado made a conscious decision. All right, if they're going to drop this many guys, whether it was 6, 7, or 8, but they're going to have 2 safeties dropping back, and they're going to take away the verticals. We got to attack the short to intermediate. And it's not with slow developing screens, it's with the quick game. And then a lot of like the in-cutting stuff, intermediate, like attack those zones underneath if you got the safeties dropping off. And I thought Colorado did a great job adjusting with that. And I think his mindset changed. And then thirdly, as his mindset changed and he started being more aggressive and taking the fight to Texas Tech, you saw the internal clock speeding up. Because as he was drifting and waiting for a home run play, waiting for that hero ball stuff to happen, it wasn't working. And so it was like this shift in mindset of, all right, if you're going to back off, I'm going to take off running. If you guys are so deep in coverage, I'm going to take the short to intermediate. The clock was ticking better in his head. And
right. When we say speed up, sometimes I think you hear that so often in football that you can see it as a negative of,
the game's going too fast for me.
Right. It gets going. No, that's not what you're saying. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm seeing the same thing. So he is now he's like, okay, if this is what you want to do, I'm going to get the ball out quickly. I'm going to get it to my playmakers. I'm going to be accurate. I'm going to put them in a place to produce after the catch. And now I'm in a rhythm. Now I'm feeling the rhythm of the game better.
Yeah. And like, to me, it was a perfect example. It was like 14-30, one of the first plays of the third quarter, second half, right? It was play 38 in the offensive tape.
Got it. I got a note right here.
Okay.
Yep. It was play 38, 14-41, third quarter. Go ahead.
It was like a bang 8 route kind of down the seam. And you could see his internal clock. Like earlier in the game, I don't know that he makes that throw and makes that decision as decisively as he does. Tough throw into traffic. Had to thread it. Had to actually throw it an inch behind the receiver's
intentionally,
numbers.
right?
Intentionally,
right? Yeah,
and that's when I was like, "Oh, okay, this is gonna be a fun third and fourth quarter. He's on. He knows what he's seeing. Decisive. When he hit that bang eight, it was like, okay,
he's feeling it. Yeah,
he's feeling it. And from that point on, the offense flowed. It really did. And then all of a sudden they got up, was 34-20, and that was the ball game. Summary, not his best game. There weren't a ton of NFL throws in there where I was like, all right, let's cut those off for the highlight reel when we get to draft weekend.
Right.
There just weren't.
Right.
But my takeaway was, like, you see Mahomes do this all the time now. You saw Brady do it all the time. Not putting him in at a level of any of those guys because he's just not. But the really good quarterbacks adjust to what they're seeing, make in-game adjustments, and find a way to grind out a win based off of what they're being given, the opportunities they're being given, and that's exactly what he did. So to me, that's progress. Because it could have been. Go ahead.
I agree. I mean, there's other things that that jumped out to me too. Is again, you always want to self-scout a little bit, and I'm wondering if I was low on his arm strength coming in when I first evaluated him, or is his arm getting stronger, which can happen. And I don't think he has a cannon for an arm.
I was going to get into that.
It's not a liability. It's not, and when you talk about those, like the play you talk about specifically where you thread the needle, I think everyone again looks at that and is like, that's a pure arm strength thing. It's not. It's anticipation, it's accuracy, it's timing, all of those things, which I think are just great strengths for him, is knowing. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, and I want you to keep going, but I want to pull up his player profile where we do the position specific traits for quarterbacks here: the mental makeup, accuracy, release and arm strength, and pocket mobility. And those of you that are watching this, you can see, and we'll walk you through. The mental makeup is a 1, and I say that, and 1. Let's give you the scale again: 1 being elite, 2 being good and above average, 3 is average, 4 is subpar, 5 is marginal. And as you see in the screen, we color code it all the time. The mental makeup is a 1, elite, and that's a green, because of several factors. I think he'll continue to develop in terms of going through reads, and we talked about consistency with his decisiveness and playing on time. But my goodness, do I love his competitiveness, and do I love his toughness? This might be.
You see that hit when he got hit late? I mean, not late, low. He got popped low, man. It did not look good for a minute. And the next play, he'll just stand in there.
He is as tough a son of a gun as you could find at the quarterback position. I love that about his game.
I think he's the easiest one mental makeup. It was the easiest one I've ever given for mental makeup, because I think by every dynamic or every way you would grade that, he checks the boxes. I think he's smart. I think he understands his offense. I think he knows when to get the ball out. He takes the easy throws when they're there. He's tough. He handles all the off the field stuff well. I mean, think about all the off the field things he has to deal with, and then go and play football on Saturday, and the way he's handled all of that as well. I think he's an easy one for mental makeup.
I agree. He's not perfect. No quarterback is, but I think he's a 1 in accuracy too. I really do. When his feet are right, especially, and he, even his ability rolling to the right, rolling to the left, like some guys have it. They understand the anticipation, how to throw receivers open, the touch, how to layer the ball. I think he excels in that area. I also think too, and we'll get into the arm strength in a second, which we had the release arm strength. I gave him a 2, which is above average. And I want to get to that in a second. Pocket mobility 2, because I think he has great instincts. He extends, makes a lot of plays. You see in the college level, he's able to take off and pick up some first downs. Did that several times against Texas Tech. I don't think in the NFL it's going to be as much as we see in college, because I don't think he has that speed or even that twitch that you look for. But with all that said, like, I think when you get into the arm strength, and the reason why we always put release/arm strength, it's start to finish, how quickly is from when he starts to pull the trigger to when the ball hits that receiver's chest, or hands. How quickly is that? And what can speed that up is a compact, quick release. And I love he's got a smooth, compact stroke.
Right.
He really does. And then, so you go down, like, if you're doing pros is he's the best pure passer in this class. Another pro, the smooth, compact stroke, like just gets the ball out quickly. Another pro, the toughness and competitive level. It's elite.
Right.
Elite, as we just talked about. And then finally, football instincts. Some guys have it, some guys don't. He's been around ball his whole life. I'm sure that's a major part of it. You have to have instincts. You have to feel things that other guys don't. You have to have confidence in your ability. He's got all those things. Okay.
Yeah, he's a killer. He's got that killer instinct when he needs it. He's a different. It's the mental makeup. But there's a reason too why we stack those traits the way we do, right? Mental makeup 1, accuracy 2nd, arm strength 3rd, because arm strength is not as important as accuracy and mental makeup. Right up at the top is mental makeup. Does this guy have it? Because we've seen other quarterbacks, man. Peyton Manning didn't throw the ball like Jeff George. Remember Jeff George, the quarterback who was like the gun for hire, who could just sling it?
Yeah,
it's not. I mean, Patrick Mahomes doesn't have the strongest arm.
I don't know.
Josh Allen, you don't think Josh Allen has a stronger arm? You don't think
Lamar
has a stronger arm?
You're comparing a cheetah to a leopard, like,
Fair enough. You know what I'm saying. Just back me up for a second. You know what I'm saying.
Fine, even if I don't buy it, I'm going to.
Arm strength and release are 3rd, and pocket mobility is the last. All of them are important, but mental makeup's king, man. It's right up top. It's number 1.
I agree. Now, let's go down the cons section, the pros and cons. Let's go down the cons. I support what you're saying. I think he has a solid, an above average arm when you combine the release quickness and the stroke. But I'll pull back a little bit on what you're saying. Yeah, I see instances where he's driving the ball down the field, and maybe it has improved, and maybe it's his footwork and tying it all together. But I also have read people, like, I have more time. I talked about more time on my hands. And I try not to read. I do a pretty good job not reading stuff from people that it doesn't matter. But occasionally I'll come across things and I'm like, no. And I've read a couple people's, rifle for an arm. I read something recently like he has a cannon he doesn't. I just talked to an NFL scout when was it the Thursday before the Cam Ward, when we were talking about Cam, because I wanted to really dive into Cam, but we also you can't talk about Cam without talking about Shedeur and some of these other guys. And we talked about Shedeur, and his big thing was like, his arm's fine with the quick release and all that. It's fine, but like, it doesn't snap off his hand like Cam Ward, there's a difference when you watch it. And so like his ball is going to be in the air a little bit longer on certain throws. So I push back heavily on the cannon for arm comments that I've read, or rifle for an arm.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I actually thought what I was saying was coming in. I was wondering if it was a liability, and I don't think it's a liability.
It's not a liability.
He's got more than enough arm talent to play.
Plenty of arm, but it is not a pro.
No.
I don't look at it and say, oh, he's going to make up for some mistakes with his ability to just drive it. He's not.
Right.
And so now, like, here's the hard part for me on Shedeur.
Okay.
Because we just talked about all those great things: accuracy, smooth stroke, anticipation, ball placement, layering the ball, instincts, toughness, competitive level, all those things that you love and are critical to playing the position. But you get into him physically, and it's like, okay, solid arm, not Josh Allen, not not someone who's not Matthew Stafford. So like,
no.
When you start looking at the top quarterbacks in the league, it's typically with all of them, accuracy's up there with all of them, but it's not like Josh Allen came into the league and accuracy was the biggest question mark. Lamar Jackson came into the league, accuracy was the biggest question mark. They've improved. That wasn't always the case. We can get into a long conversation about how mobility and buying time and learning over time, you can improve those things. And for a long time in the league, you didn't see many examples of that. But the two things that almost all these guys have in common are, well, I shouldn't say two, but all the elite guys have at least one of the traits of big time arm. And I just mentioned Stafford, Josh Allen. I'll put Mahomes in there. You can push back a little bit. You go through the top guys in the league, big time arm, and this is where the league has changed, dangerous runner. Not just like can scramble, and scrambling's part of it, extending plays is part of it, but also some danger. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. He doesn't run as much. He extends, and it's all about that. But when he takes off, he doesn't look pretty, get that upright run and all that, but he is effective running the football. Jaden Daniels comes in the league, and it's a combination of being able to throw the ball the way he's throwing it, but also that speed is a huge factor, how you have to defend him. So I look at Shedeur, and I'm like, doesn't have an elite arm.
Nope.
Not a dangerous runner.
Nope.
And then you factor in sometimes holding on to the ball too long. And that did the third
Can
part.
we get into that a little bit?
Go ahead, please.
I hear, to me, I get what you're saying, right? Does he hold on to the ball too long? Watch the beginning of the Cincinnati tape, and he gets smoked. And I don't want to use the word casual or nonchalant, but there are just times.
Oh, no, you can use those words. I agree.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So there's times where he's just, but I'll say this: when he has a guy, it's gone. When he has an option, when he gets a clean read and he sees an open man, it's gone. Ball's out. So he's not a guy that's, skittish about pulling the trigger or not seeing the field, and that's why he's holding on to the ball. He's holding on to the ball to make a play, and there are just times you're like, bro, throw it away. Protect your body.
Check it down.
You know how we know how tough he is? Because he gets absolutely smoked on something. Like, he had bad protection. He has these plays where he just holds onto the ball too long and he gets hit hard. So I just want to be clear about what I see, because I agree with you. I do think he holds onto the ball too long, but I think going more into specifically why he may be doing that is important, because it's not a matter of him. I mean, there was times in the Texas Tech game, he got to his third option like that. I mean, he can boom, and then right to his third guy. I think it's more of him wanting to make a play and not understanding it's okay to throw this ball away. And he takes sacks to put them in bad situations where if he had thrown the ball, there was a 3rd and 19 in this game where he took a sack that he just needed to throw the ball away. And now you have a 3rd and 10 and you have a much better chance of getting it. So I hear what you're saying and I agree with it, but I think that when I see it, there's a reason for it.
Yeah, I watch it, and I'm always watching it through this lens. Is that going to work in the NFL?
Right.
And then can we correct it in the NFL? And I think with a lot of these quarterbacks, we see, and Caleb's in the same boat. Like, he's got a lot of correcting still to do. That's why we just fired an offensive coordinator, and that's why this next hire for Chicago is so critical.
Right.
Shedeur's going to have to improve and grow up in that area. I mean, even the pick 6 against Nebraska just held on to the ball too long and kind of patted it one more time than he needed to. But generally speaking, I think you're right. That was kind of an outlier where he sees it open, trusts it, and rips it.
Right.
But there are too many times, yes, nonchalant would be like kind of drifting a little, holding out for a bigger play. And we talked about this with Cam Ward, and it's a critical part of his game as well that's going to have to improve. I said offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, when they get with Cam Ward, they're going to have to drill it in like it's okay. Let's take the 7, let's take the change and make it into $1. Let's take the 7 and all of a sudden it's 2nd and 3 and we're in a good situation. Move the chains. So that's going to have to improve in his game, and I think it will. But when I watch him, here's the example I'll give. When I watch Shedeur Sanders, sometimes in the pocket, holding onto the ball too long, I get the feeling like he's trying to squeeze every last drop out of that lemon.
Yeah.
And as I say all the time,
great way of saying it. Yep.
But sometimes the juice isn't worth the squeeze.
Right.
So to me, like, learning when to try to get that last little bit of juice out of the lemon versus like, it's not worth having to squeeze anymore. Let's just take 4 here. Let's take 5. Yeah. Let's take a 7-yard gain and get second down and 3. So that's where I am on Shedeur. Let's wrap this up. These are hard conversations to have, Mitch, and we're only in November, but we've seen almost all of his college tape.
Yeah.
What is he going to be at the next level? I'm going to give you 2.
Okay.
I am, and I'm going to let you. Here's what I've watching the tape over and over again. If every general manager wants from the scouts, give me an NFL comp. Like, what do you think he's going to be in the league?
Oh, this is
I
good.
see, and who does he remind you of? And I see two guys. I see a right-handed version of Tua in some respects, and I don't think it's a perfect comp. But I see a guy who's a distributor when he's decisive and trusts his eyes, and I think it's the smooth, quick release.
Yeah,
when he knows where he wants to go with the ball, like they're distributing, like
not a cannon, good
not
touch.
a cannon. Yeah, he does a great. And we talked about this before. Carson Beck makes his receivers work. It's a struggle. It's watching guys like with the bag over his shoulder climb up a hill. Right. His receivers have it easy. Like they're at a resort, like, pucking the ball, leading the yards after carry, throwing them open. That's what Tua does for his receivers when things are right. and it's flowing. Right.
Yep,
the other guy, I think probably more of a comp overall, but there was just something about the quick release, compact, and the ball placement and the touch that I saw in Tua. But Geno Smith is the other guy.
Interesting.
And I know he had a long career journey and arc and all this stuff. But if you take the last, 4 or 5 years, you take his best several years and you make that into a career, when it's all said and done, if that's Shedeur's career in the NFL, we're like, damn good career.
Yeah.
I agree. But I want to say this, and I know this is going to bring on a lot of water to the boat. Shedeur Sanders is not Patrick Mahomes. Shedeur Sanders is not Lamar Jackson. He's not Josh Allen. He's not Matthew Stafford. Give me the list of the elite guys. He's
Joe
just
Burrow.
That will be his ceiling.
Absolute ceiling, right? I'm not ready to go there.
Absolute ceiling.
I'm not ready to go there, but
I'm not either.
I think it's an interesting. I'm not there yet, but if you were like, oh, what is this? What could this kid? If everything goes right, what is it? Maybe Joe Burrow.
That's the ceiling that I'm willing to go. And I think, to be honest with you right now, Joe Burrow as the ceiling is a little bit of a reach for me.
Yeah, okay. I kind of agree. Yeah, I don't hate your comps.
Real quickly, let's wrap this up. Let's look at our updated class of quarterbacks. Excuse me. The scary part to me, Shedeur's the best that we have. And I want it to be perfectly clear right now. I'm in love with Shedeur Sanders' tape. I'm in love with his makeup. I'm in love with his toughness. I think he's the best pure passer in this class. I think he's going to be a good starting quarterback in the NFL. I don't think he's Jaden Daniels. I don't think he's coming in. He doesn't have the speed and the explosiveness to overcome some of the issues that he's going to have to, that all rookie quarterbacks have to overcome. I don't think he's that level. So if Shedeur's number one, and I've talked to scouts and general managers who think he's the best that we have to offer in the 2025 class. I've talked to other guys. Cam Ward is the best that the class has to offer. I've talked to guys earlier in the process before the last two games, Texas A&M and Alabama, that thought Garrett Nussmeier was the best the class had to offer. And I think a year from now, we'll be talking about Nussmeier potentially as the number one quarterback in the 2026 class. But as I promised Saturday night, after watching the last six quarters of play, Garrett Nussmeier, I love his game. I love his potential. He's not there yet. He needs to go back to school. So let's remove him from this list. So here we are with Shedeur at 1, Cam Ward at 2, Jalen Milroe. I'll continue to say it. The ultimate wild card in this class probably would benefit greatly from returning to Alabama for one more year. And then followed by that, Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers are kind of in the same neighborhood, 4 and 5. Beck, I think, coming off, despite a loss, it looked like the light kind of came on for him a little bit. So
steadied a little bit.
React to that real quickly, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, well, listen, I'll say this about the Sanders comparison to Jaden Daniels. Obviously, they're not the same mobility, and I will say that I love Sanders.
And not even close, by the way.
Jaden Daniels' 2023 tape is different. I mean, it's a
scouting nirvana. Different.
Where would you fit Jackson Dart from Ole Miss in the conversation? He's not in the top 5. I agree with you.
He's day 3.
Just that second tier.
Yeah, I saw Nagy had a tweet recently. They talked to 14 NFL teams getting ready to put out their final invites for the Senior Bowl, and all 14 teams really were interested in having him at the Senior Bowl, and that makes sense to me considering the offense
I agree.
They ran at Ole Miss. I would love to see Jackson Dart in Mobile. Let's see him in a pro-style offense. Let's see him how he plays. How much does he adjust? And it's just a week of practice, just a couple practices, but does he pick things up quickly?
Right.
and all that. So I would love to see Jackson Dart. My guess is if Jackson accepts the invite, and he'd be crazy not to, that we'll get to see Jackson Dart there. And there are a handful of other quarterbacks that I'd be interested to see if they're there. Because let's face it, I mean, it will be one of the all-time great gets if Jim Nagy gets Shedeur Sanders, the Mobile, right, in January for that. I think it's February 3rd is the February 1st or 3rd is the actual Senior Bowl game. It will be interesting to see Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward would absolutely benefit from being there, coming from, you know, a lot of air raid throughout his career, more advanced at Miami than it was certainly at Incarnate Word, and more advanced than it was at Washington State. But still, I would love to see him down there. So I think all these quarterbacks would benefit greatly. And getting Jalen Milroe, if he decides to come out in Alabama, you know, it would be like the Beatles in Mobile having Jalen Milroe.
Imagine with Milroe and Sanders at that game. Oh, paparazzi, man.
Yeah, we got to get the Red Elephant Club to back Nagy to support. We get some Senior Bowl NIL deals. But anyway, all right. So that's where we are in the class. I thought it was important to take some time to get through Shedeur, and we did for probably way too long. I'm sure everyone listening would agree with that.